Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back into the Color Gemstone Academy. I am your instructor, Paul Deasy, and this is my YouTube channel, Paul Deasy Gemstones. Well, first of all, we are closing in on 2,300 subscribers, and once again, I want to thank each and every one of you who've taken the time to subscribe. I really do appreciate it. It helps me out a great deal. I also wanted to thank all of you for your patience. We've been still traveling a little bit down south of where we are now because we're going to be relocating soon. And then this coming week, I will be traveling to my manufacturers in New Jersey, talking about a new venture. So I hope to have good news for you in the next couple of weeks, but be patient with me if I don't get all of the lessons out on time because of all of the travel schedule that I have going on. Well, a couple of you have said you really like when I'm dressing, coordinating with the color of the gemstone that I'm doing, so that should be a hint of what we're going to talk about today. Today's lesson is episode 70, and it is about really one of those unsung heroes. I love this gemstone. It is called Charoite. Now, what is Charoite? Charoite is a rare silicate mineral. It's an opaque stone, and when you think about purple gemstones, there's not a lot of them. We all know about amethyst. You might have heard of purple sapphires or purple diamonds, purple spinel. But there's not a lot, especially in the opaques. Yes, the amethyst can be in an opaque form and be a purple gemstone. But this one is different. Charoite was first discovered in and around the 1940, I believe it was. But it didn't gain any notoriety, or we didn't hear much about it until 1978. Now, Charoite is named for the Chara River in Siberia in Russia. And that is the only place that this gemstone is mined. As you might guess, when you're mining in Siberia, it's a very difficult place to mine gemstones. First of all, it can be extremely cold temperatures, and at that time it's the ground is so frozen you can't do any mining at that time. And then when the weather breaks and it starts to warm up a little bit, then you're going to see that the ground becomes very mushy and wet. So there's a very short mining season, just like we talk about with the chrome diopside. In Siberia, there's a very short available time to mine the material. Okay, so what do you need to know about Charoite? Well, for me, it was over 10 years ago. The first time I sold Charoite anywhere on any shopping channel is when I was a gem insider bringing my gemstone line to Shop NBC up in Minnesota. And the first, what they called today's top value, I forget what their handle was. It was a Charoite ring. Charoite is a beautiful, opaque, but sometimes almost translucent purple gemstone. Sometimes you'll see swirls of white in there. Sometimes you'll even have a phenomenon. Like we talk about gemstones that are phenomenal. They have an optical phenomenon. Well, sometimes you'll see a chatoyant, like that cat's eye effect, in that beautiful purple stone. There's really nothing much like it on Earth. There's only one thing that I would compare it to. And the thing that I'm going to compare it to, the stone I'm going to compare it to, is actually a very rare cyclosilicate and a very expensive stone as a result, and it's called Sugilite. Now, I'm going to show you one on the screen now. It has a lot of similarities in the appearance of the Charoite, but at a much greater cost. So when we go to, and you look at that appearance, and I show you the chatoyant gem, sometimes people, because it's just so vivid and so deep in color and so beautiful, a lot of people assume it might be a man-made gemstone. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. This is a completely natural gemstone with no treatments whatsoever. So we will go back to that tail of the tape I like to talk about, some of those characteristics that only the charoite has, so you can identify it as a charoite. So there's a very rare cyclosilicate that is much, much more expensive than the charoite, which is one of the reasons I love charoite so much. Now, is there anything else close? No, not really. There is, sometimes people think there's such a thing as a purple turquoise. And no, I'm not talking about like the what we get from the Kingman mine, which is the purple Mojave turquoise, which is a dyed turquoise. Nothing wrong with it as long as you disclose it. And I've sold a lot of it, and here's what it looks like on the screen right now. But there is also a very rare turquoise by the name of Bisbee. Now it's more sort of a maroon kind of matrix in that blue background of the turquoise, but sometimes it tends to look a little bit more like a purple matrix in that turquoise. And once again, that is a very expensive turquoise, much, much more expensive than the charoite. Okay, so now we're going to get into those vital statistics that I always talk about, which is how you identify one gem from another, or how you know you are looking at the right gem. First of all, the crystal structure, the chemical composition is technically a silicate mineral. But what you're going to see is a really long string of elements on your screen that are too numerous to mention in one breath. So you're going to see some potassium, some calcium, sodium, oxygen, hydrogen, water. All of these molecules there come together to make that gemstone that only appears in Siberia and Russia. I'm going to give you some comparisons to that Sugilite I spoke about, because they really look like they could be cousins, but they have some important differences, so I'll bring that up as I talk about these vital statistics. The crystal structure of the charoite is a monoclinic structure. Now when we take a look at that Sugilite, by the way, it's funny it's called Sugilite because it's named after Ken Ichisugi, but we call it Sugilite, so I don't know why it's a soft G. But that one is a hexagonal crystal structure. So right away you know that they're going to be different from each other, even though they look like they could be twins at times. The luster, when we describe the charoite, they call it a pearly luster. When we talk about the Sugilite, it's described as a vitreous luster. So that's a little bit of a difference there as well. Now we get into the hardness. Well, in the case of our in the case of our charoite, it's between a 5 and a 6. And then when we get into the Sugilite, 6 to 6.5. So very similar, but the Sugilite's going to be just slightly harder. Now remember, for those of you that are new to this class, when we talk about hardness, it's the Mohs scale of hardness developed by Frederick Mohs, and it is literally a test of what gem can scratch another gem. Then we get into the toughness. That's the ability to withstand cracking and chipping or breaking altogether. And in this case, they're all going to be similar, kind of, good to fair in its toughness. So that we're going to be almost identical in that regard. Getting to that refractive index. Now remember, the refractive index is a measurement of the sparkle or the reflective nature of the stone. When you look at a diamond, you want all that sparkle coming back to the eye. Well, with opaques, it's really not so much about sparkle, but that reflective surface, maybe the luster that it has. And when we take a look at the charoite, it's about a 1.559. And if we take a look at the Sugilite, its refractive index is a 1.61. So right in that same neighborhood. Again, the similarities are somewhat amazing between these two gemstones, but the price is the big difference. Specific gravity, that's the heft of the gemstone. That means how heavy does it feel compared to the size of that? What's the density? Sometimes they use that word for the specific gravity. Well, they're all going to be very similar in that regard as well. You take a look at the charoite, 2.54 to 2.58, and slightly slightly more dense would be your Sugilite, which is 2.74. So a little bit more dense. That means if you had two stones that were the same weight, actually, the Sugilite would be smaller than the Charoite. It's just something to keep in mind when we're talking about specific gravities. I know this is a short lesson, but I really wanted to talk about one of my favorite things being in this business and selling it on television channels for 30 years. I really love to find those diamonds in the rough, those gems that are really beautiful. They have so much character, and even looking at in jewelry, you don't see much of a difference between, here's a piece of jewelry with the Charoite, and then I'm going to show you actually a loose stone of the chatoyant Sugilite, and they look like they could be twins. But the real difference is the price. When I did that first special on Shop NBC, I want to say it was a ring with a beautiful, lilac Charoite, and it was probably around $60 or $70, and of course we sold them out. So I wanted you to be aware of this stone, and if you're looking for purple and purple is your color, I would like every one of you to get one of these Charoites in your personal collection. I promise you, you won't regret it. That's going to be all the time I have for this particular week's lesson. I'm going to try and get back on track this week with some more of our Q&A series. I'm a couple of, you're giving me some great Q&As. I'm a little bit behind. I'm going to shoot a couple of those this week to get those out to you while I'm traveling. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.